Hey guys, welcome to COVID-19 remote learning. Yeah, how much fun are we having at home? Probably not as much fun if you're in here watching me teach you about stuff, which we will be going through negative feedback cycle today. But I thought I'd just try these videos to get you guys, I don't know, that feeling like you are in class, like you get to see me be dumb in front of a whiteboard and that kind of stuff, and hopefully helps engage you guys a little bit more. Yes, I know I have the Rona beard, it is gross, but eventually it will go when you guys come back to school, or not, I don't know, I haven't made up my mind yet. But yeah, I haven't actually, I do this all in one take, so if I stuff up, I already know, but again, it's like being in class. Alright, all good, we ready to go? Sweet. Alright, so this video is going to be more of a recap rather than me teaching you guys stuff. Most of these videos are going to be more recaps to complement the work on the OneNote or in Education Perfect rather than me actually teaching you. Some things I might do multiple videos through and step them through. I haven't thought that far ahead yet, which is generally how I live life. But again, I'll ask for your feedback on this, and if you really enjoy these, I'll start making more of them. Alright? So yes, we're going to be having a look at the negative feedback cycle. So as far as our body, we have two. We have negative feedback and positive feedback. One of them's good, one of them's generally bad, except for a couple of scenarios. So the good one, despite what its name says, is a negative feedback cycle. You think negative is bad. I'm like, yeah, technically if you have negative money, it's really bad. Or if you have negative something else, it's normally pretty bad. But in the body, the negative doesn't mean like minus, it's more of a negating type thing. So if you remember back to homeostasis, the body always wants to try and be at that level, depending on what it is, whether it's blood glucose, blood pressure, or temperature. So what this is it's negating the changes to those things, trying to get it back to homeostasis. Alright, so what I'm going to do is everyone's favorite, I'm going to be drawing up on the board. Yay! But at least this time I can speed it up so you're not sitting there for like 5 minutes and redoing it. Alright, so I'm going to quickly do this one, and when we jump back to me talking, it will be all done on the board. Alright? And we're back. Cool, sweet, hopefully that wasn't too bad. So what I've drawn here as far as a negative feedback cycle is all about thermoregulation, so looking at our body's temperature, which, does anyone know? Well, I don't know why I'm asking, because you're not here, which is sad. It is roughly about 37 degrees Celsius, alright? So remember this one here, the negative feedback cycle is negating certain factors to make sure that we always come back to homeostasis. So the two things that can happen to our body temperature, it can rise. Now, this can be due to exercise, or it could be due to the environment, or a combination of both. But let's say you are exercising, and we go through, our body temperature rises, and when you exercise, especially if you're Mr. McQuaid, you experience these things to the extreme almost. So the blood vessels dilate. This allows more blood to be able to flow around, and another thing that I forgot to put there is that most of the blood vessels in our skin come to the surface. That's why we get our red faces from, because all the blood is getting to the surface so the heat can be dissipated through the skin. Now, another one, which I hate, that's why I'm glad it's getting to winter, is the sweat glands begin to secrete sweat. So what this does is it produces sweat, and what that does is that the blood vessels come to the surface of our skin, and our skin gets really hot, and what happens is the sweat, as it's dripping down or as it's making contact with your skin, what's happening is the heat transfer is actually going from your skin into the sweat, and then the sweat either gets wiped away, removing heat, or it it evaporates, again, removing heat away from the skin. So that is how our body obviously thermoregulates itself. So this is how the heat is then lost to the environment. So via the sweating and the evaporation, or the removal of the sweat as it's drawn out the heat, or the heat has been transferred into the liquid. Obviously there's other things that we do that isn't to do with our physiology. It's all about like finding shade, drinking water, trying to cool down. But this is what our body does no matter the environment. So then heat is lost to the environment, and then eventually we should get back to our normal body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. So again, these responses can be more exaggerated in some people, or some people exercise for hours and it looks like they barely raise the sweat. That's just the body. That's just the way that their body responds to exercise. Their body temp may not rise as much, or some people might have a large increase in body temperature. So then it comes back to normal body temp, and we are back at homeostasis. All right. But what happens if we go home, we've gone for a run because you're all staying nice and fit. We go inside and then we crank up the air conditioning and everything else, and we sweep back to normal body temperature. But oh no, we start to get below this 37 degrees. So what happens is our body temperature falls below. Now, the normal body temp does fluctuate between about 36.5 and 38.5. It kind of fluctuates between those. 38.5 on a hotter day, 36.5 down to 36 on cooler days. So we do have a range, not exactly 37. But what happens if it falls below that for a prolonged period of time? What happens is our body has some responses to that as well. What happens is the blood vessels constrict, which restricts movement of the blood, conserving heat inside of us. Obviously no sweating because we want to retain heat. And then we also start shivering. So what shivering does is contractions of the muscles, whether that be voluntary or involuntary, that produces heat. Think about when you exercise, you get hot and sweaty because the contraction of our muscles produces energy, and the energy, there's normally a heat component of that. So this is our body trying to produce heat without us rugging up or doing anything like that. And it's normally the first indication that we're starting to get cold. Now, obviously, like the body temperature rising, when it falls, these are stuff that our body does. But obviously, as a response, we would either go and find somewhere warm to sit, like out in the sun, or we would try and layer on some more clothing, whether that be jumpers, tracksuit pants, Uggs if you're a disgusting individual, or you might go and jump in a hot shower or a spa, or if you're in Japan, an onsen. Anyway, and then as a result, heat is retained, not retained. Good one, Mr. McQuaid. Yeah, so heat's retained in our body, and as a result, the heat's retained in, and we're also creating more heat. And as it's retained, we get back to a normal body temperature. We get back to our homeostatic level that we're always after, what we're trying to keep. So this is what the body does as far as thermoregulation. So even though it says negative feedback, this is actually very important and is very good, very positive, but don't say positive, it's negative, a feedback cycle. So it kind of fluctuates around here, almost like a figure of 8. So it's always trying to balance that out. Now, with the other one, that we'll look at probably in the next video, is a positive feedback cycle, and it kind of just goes around and around and around, and makes it works, but just kind of compounds the initial stimulus. So adds on, positive, however you guys kind of remember it. So if you want to go back through this video again, just so you can review a negative feedback cycle, or you just want to feel like you're back in class again, I don't know, you do you. If not, I'll catch you in the next one.